Keith Kellogg gave us a hint. And this shows you, I have to be careful in my language, but I would say the lack of lucidity on the part of the Trump administration, especially Keith Kellogg. He's going to lower oil to $45 a barrel because he has a simplistic argument. The Russians, he says today, with the $60 barrel cap, which the Russians have blown through, are making billions of dollars. You're right. But if we lower it to $45, which he calls the break-even point for Russian oil, then the Russians make no money and their economy collapses. That doesn't work that way, Keith. You see, the Russians have two break-even points. So one is what they need to balance their budget because it's an oil-driven economy. They need around oil to be above $60 a barrel, around $70 a barrel, $71 a barrel.
Right.
And if you drop it down to 45, they can't balance their budget. But the cost of oil production is $41 and lower, meaning that the Russians can continue to produce oil. Now, to get oil dropped to 45 barrels, we have to get the cooperation of the Saudis. Their break-even point is $85 a barrel. They're already losing tens of billions of dollars a month because of our desire to lower oil prices. They need the price to go higher, not lower. But if even if we bring it down to 45, they can produce oil at around $10 a barrel, which means they can just continue producing oil. Here's the kick. Permian Basin in the United States, all of the oil growth in the United States have taken in the last 4 years comes from Permian Basin. It's the benchmark for us.
Where is that? Where is that?
That's in West Texas. The break-even point for oil in the Permian Basin, there's two factors. One is existing wells, the old wells that have been in place. It takes about 33. If you sell oil at $33 a barrel, they break even. But that's not where the growth is. All of the growth is in the new drilling. And the new drilling break-even point, $66 a barrel. Hey, Trump, go to West Texas and sit down with the wildcatters. They're the ones doing all the new drilling of significance. Ask them how it feels to sink hundreds of millions of dollars into a project based upon the presumption of $78 a barrel oil, which the American government has promised them so they can put all their life savings in this. And you're going to tell them, no, we're going to have an economic war with Russia where we're going to drop the price of oil to $45 a barrel. And all of those new wells will drop. American oil production will drop 33% in 2 years. You know whose oil production won't drop? Russia and Saudi Arabia. Donald Trump has to be smarter than he is in going forward, and he needs to fire Keith Kellogg because Keith Kellogg has no clue how the world works, no clue how the world economy works, no clue how oil works. He's out there just throwing stupid numbers out there, and Trump's listening to him.
Scott Ritter offers a comprehensive analysis of Keith Kellogg's proposal to drop global oil prices to $45 per barrel, exposing what he calls a lack of understanding of global energy economics and the consequences of such a move. Ritter begins by explaining Kellogg's flawed reasoning, which assumes that reducing oil prices would devastate Russia's economy by cutting into its oil revenue. According to Kellogg, Russia is currently thriving with oil prices exceeding the $60 per barrel cap imposed by Western sanctions, and lowering prices to $45 would supposedly undercut Russia's income to the point of economic collapse. Ritter strongly disagrees, explaining that Kellogg's argument completely ignores the nuanced realities of oil production and global market dynamics. Ritter explains that Russia has two critical break-even points when it comes to oil. The first is the price needed to balance its national budget, which hovers around $70 per barrel. This figure reflects Russia's dependence on oil revenue to fund government operations and maintain economic stability. However, the second break-even point, the actual production cost of Russian oil, is far lower, at approximately $41 per barrel or less. This means that even if global oil prices were to drop to $45 per barrel, Russia could continue producing and exporting oil without significant financial strain. Essentially, while the lower prices might create some fiscal challenges, they would not cripple Russia's ability to operate, as Kellogg seems to believe. In contrast, Ritter points out that the US and Saudi Arabia, two key players in the oil market, would suffer far more from a drop in oil prices. Saudi Arabia, for example, requires oil prices around $85 per barrel to balance its national budget, meaning that any further price reductions would exacerbate the billions of dollars the kingdom is already losing each month. For the United States, the situation is particularly dire when it comes to domestic oil production. Ritter highlights the importance of the Permian Basin in West Texas, the center of U.S. oil production growth. He notes that while existing wells in the region can break even at $33 per barrel, the real expansion of U.S. oil output depends on new drilling projects, which require oil prices to remain at $66 per barrel or higher. If prices were to drop to $45, these new projects would become financially unviable, leading to a significant reduction in American oil production. Ritter estimates a 33% decline over 2 years. This stark contrast in break-even points underscores the futility of Kellogg's strategy. While Russia could weather a price drop, the same cannot be said for the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, making the proposal self-defeating. Furthermore, Ritter emphasizes that such a move would weaken the U.S. oil industry, destroy investor confidence, and harm the broader economy. He sarcastically suggests that Trump visit the wildcatters in West Texas, the independent oil producers responsible for much of the new drilling, and ask them how they feel about sinking millions of dollars into projects that are only profitable at $78 per barrel, only to be told their investments are being sacrificed for an economic war with Russia. Ritter also takes aim at Kellogg's broader understanding of global oil markets and economics, calling it fundamentally flawed. He explains that even if the U.S. somehow managed to lower oil prices to $45 per barrel, Russia and Saudi Arabia, with their significantly lower production costs, would continue dominating the market. This would leave the U.S. in a weaker position, with reduced production and a diminished ability to influence global oil dynamics. Meanwhile, Russia would continue exporting oil, pocketing profits, and maintaining its geopolitical leverage. Ritter paints a picture of Vladimir Putin laughing at the naivety of such a plan, as it would fail to achieve its intended goal while harming the U.S. and its allies. Ritter doesn't stop at critiquing the strategy. He also criticizes Trump for listening to Kellogg. He suggests that Trump needs to surround himself with advisors who have a sophisticated understanding of energy markets and global economics. Ritter warns that taking advice from individuals like Kellogg, who he describes as ignorant of the complexities of the oil industry, could lead to disastrous consequences. He calls on Trump to fire Kellogg and instead rely on experts who can provide sound, realistic strategies that align with U.S. interests. In his analysis, Ritter underscores the interconnectedness of global oil markets and the dangers of simplistic policy proposals. He highlights the resilience of Russia's oil sector, the economic vulnerabilities of the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, and the potential fallout from misguided strategies. Ritter's message is clear. If Trump wants to compete effectively on the global stage, he must reject advice based on faulty assumptions and instead embrace a more informed and pragmatic approach. Without this shift, the U.S. risks not only failing in its objectives, but also weakening its own economic foundation while strengthening its adversaries. According to Scott Ritter, Keith Kellogg recently hinted at a plan that showcases a concerning misunderstanding of global oil dynamics. He proposed lowering oil prices to $45 a barrel, claiming it would cripple the Russian economy by cutting their profits. But this oversimplified argument ignores crucial facts. Russia operates with 2 break-even points. To balance their budget, they need oil prices around $70 per barrel, but their production cost is much lower, about $41 or less. Even at $45 a barrel, Russia can keep producing oil, sustaining their economy. Lowering prices would hurt others far more, starting with the Saudis. Their break-even point is $85 a barrel, and they're already losing billions trying to meet the U.S.'s demand for lower prices. For them, reducing prices further is untenable. The impact on the U.S. would be devastating. In the Permian Basin, the epicenter of American oil production, existing wells break even at $33 per barrel. However, new drilling, the lifeblood of growth, needs prices around $66 to $78 to remain viable. Cutting oil prices to $45 would collapse this growth, reducing U.S. oil production by 33% in just 2 years. Meanwhile, Russia and Saudi Arabia would keep pumping. Their economies are structured to weather these price fluctuations, unlike the U.S., where the plan would devastate domestic oil production. It's not just bad economics, it's a gift to America's competitors. Donald Trump must rethink this strategy. Keith Kellogg's plan doesn't align with economic reality or geopolitical strategy. If Trump wants to strengthen America, he needs to surround himself with advisors who understand how the world works. Right now, Vladimir Putin is likely watching and laughing. Thanks for watching.